Hi guys, Harrison I'm back once again with a brand new video for you, and before I get started on the main point of this Dre TV video, I'd just like to say for those people that were unaware of what happened towards the end of my Hot Lap for Jules campaign for the Henry Surtees Foundation, I've made my donation. You can see it right here. As you can see, I just donated £117 to the Henry Surtees Foundation because the final count of hot laps was 468. Far more than I could ever anticipate. So, on behalf of me, the Henry Surtees Foundation, and the entire F1 community, thank you all so much for everyone who took the time out to create a lap and spread the word. Thank you so much. You guys are the best. Right, on to the video.
Welcome to you all at home.
You've still got a chance to win this race, haven't you?
Just drive. I wanna be the only one to make it feel
So, in the biggest, well, non-shock of F1 silly season so far, and it probably will be the biggest shock of F1 silly season in general, it turns out that Kimi Raikkonen is going to stay at Ferrari for the 2016 season, after many hinted that he would be dropped by the team and replaced with either Valtteri Bottas, John-Eric Verne, or Nico Hülkenberg. Now, there's been a lot of angry reaction to this, there's been a lot of shock, and I think there's been a lot of drama regarding this move, because I think it's a surprise move, because I think a lot of people had it conditioned into their minds that Raikkonen was going to go. And understandable, you know, and I'll get to why in a minute, but it's an interesting case because I think it calls forth a greater debate in general. And I think it's a debate more regarding, should the best drivers be in the best teams? And I'll explain why over the course of this video. Raikkonen is a guy that's kind of like the dream team for Ferrari. I know Raikkonen is a very popular driver, he's very well liked, and seeing him in Ferrari, which I would argue is the sport's most popular team, it's a nice combination, especially with Sebastian Vettel, who has a lot of admirers, a lot of fans, and a lot of people just support Ferrari in general as a team. And if anything, I think Vettel's kind of embraced the underdog role that we often saw Fernando Alonso in a couple of years ago. But I digress. It's a situation where I think, if you want to weigh up the pros and cons of keeping Raikkonen, the main pro, in my opinion, of keeping him is the chemistry with him within the team. Vettel likes Raikkonen. Yeah, they are very good friends. Arguably the best friends on the pad. I think Vettel said before that he's closest to Raikkonen than any other driver on the grid. So they're good friends. They've not had a falling out ever. And, you know, you can tell there's a more positive atmosphere within the Ferrari camp than it was with Fernando Alonso and Felipe Massa or Raikkonen in the team, whatever combination you prefer. Ferrari seem more upbeat, more in higher spirits. You know, Mauricio Arrivabene, I think, has done a very good job with that team so far, alongside James Allison. And I think the level of optimism, you know, they still want to work hard, but there's like a renowned breath of fresh air breathing through the Ferrari camp with Vettel and Raikkonen there. And everything seems to be coming up roses for them, compared to where they were last year, where they were struggling to be fourth in the Constructors' Championship and battling with McLaren. This year they're now in a clear second. They clearly have the measure on Williams, and while they're probably too far away to challenge Mercedes for the Constructors' Championship, it's still a big improvement and a big step forward for the team that, you know, really did seem to be going nowhere with Alonso at the helm. And hey, why upset the apple cart if you've got Kimi Raikkonen there alongside Sebastian Vettel? And, you know, Raikkonen has kind of underperformed, but not massively to the point where, oh, you absolutely have to fire him. I get why Ferrari's doing that. Ferrari are a team that like consistency. They don't like getting rid of drivers quickly. I think they'll give a driver maybe 2 or 3 years before they think about cutting him. I mean, Massa's first stint there was 4 years before the injury, and then he came back and did another 4. So even if Massa was underperforming then, Ferrari don't cut dudes quickly unless the guys want to leave, and nobody wants to rush to leave Ferrari anytime soon. So why upset the apple cart? The status quo has gotten you this far, so why change it? It's a valid argument you can make on that one, and, you know, while Raikkonen hasn't been as good as Vettel, nowhere near as good this season, at the same time, I feel that, you know, maybe Raikkonen is worth keeping for another year, trying to make it to 2017 with the new cars and seeing what happens from there. So that's one side of the coin. The other side of the coin is that he's chronically underperformed, and it's again, I think that's the much more viable argument you can make. I saw F1 Fanatic post up this stat when Raikkonen was announced he was kept at Ferrari, and in the time that he's returned to Ferrari in 2014, he has been out-qualified 24-5, and he has been out-raced 20-3 by the combination of Alonso and Vettel in the year and a half since he's been back with the team. That's alarming. Now, we know Ferrari is a team that traditionally have a number 1 and a number 2. It's not like other teams that, you know, most of the time they're not going to pull team orders, mostly because it just doesn't matter most of the time. Team orders are only really a thing with top-level teams. And with top-level teams, Ferrari most of the time have had a 1-2 system. They didn't really have one last year when Raikkonen joined, so I don't think it's as easy as just putting Raikkonen as a number 2 driver and getting on with it. I don't think Raikkonen would listen to team orders anyway, to be honest with you. I just don't think he's that kind of guy. So, I don't think it's as simple as, oh, he's just a number 2, he'll be fine. He's chronically underperformed. Last year, he was atrociously bad. Like, he scored 55 points, and I think he was outside the top 10 of the Drivers' Championship. That's alarming. And this year, he's in a Williams sandwich when his teammate is nearly 100 points ahead of him through 10 rounds. It's looking like it's going to be a bigger beaten down than when Alonso was there last year. I'd argue we gave Felipe Massa more of a hard time when he was at Ferrari, when he was a designated number 2, and, you know, we all thought he was underperforming because, you know, in hindsight, it was Alonso's team, and Massa was never meant to succeed over there, and every time Massa did have a better weekend, they fucked with him. They told Massa to pull over, they've messed with his gearbox at COTA 2012, etc. So, Massa was meant to underperform. Ferrari held him back. That was just the nature of the team. Not really the same in this instance. I've not seen at one point where they've said that they've made Raikkonen a number 2 guy. I think Raikkonen has just underperformed. Now, to be fair to Raikkonen, I think he's been a little bit unlucky in some instances. He was unlucky in Australia to have the bad pit stop that caused the retirement, and he was unlucky to have not had second place in Hungary after a tremendous start and a MGU failure, Ferrari's first mechanical fault of the season. But even so, I think he'd still be quite a long way from where Sebastian is, and being real here, if Ferrari want to challenge for the Constructors' Championship, they need 2 drivers that can score really good points. And that's something that Ferrari just don't have. If you want to look at Mercedes, yeah, their car is obviously overpowered by comparison to Ferrari. But Nico Rosberg is just as good a driver as Lewis Hamilton in 90% of circumstances. If Hamilton wasn't there, Rosberg could easily cakewalk his way to a championship. And Rosberg will almost always finish second. Almost. And that's fine, because Mercedes have 2 guys that can stuff the points in every week unless there's some kind of problem. That's what Rosberg can do. Because Rosberg, whatever happens, will be good for 250 to 300 points a season in this context. He had 319 last season, and that was with a DNF in the double point finale. Ferrari haven't got that luxury. And if they're going to challenge for the Constructors, they need 2 guys to be up there as opposed to 1. Vettel can't carry a team to a one-man Constructors title. I know Ferrari is always focused on the drivers as opposed to the Constructors, but the point remains. If they want to beat Mercs, they need both guys up there. And it's the known entity argument against taking the chance on someone a bit fresher and being new. There's no guarantee that Valtteri Bottas or Nico Hülkenberg would be the guys either. And that's another argument for keeping Raikkonen, because Bottas has been mediocre this season, in my opinion. He's not really kicked on from where he was last year, and he's struggling to deal with Felipe Massa, the guy that Ferrari cut 2 years ago to bring Raikkonen in the first place. If you can't deal with the guy Ferrari fired, then why do you deserve that seat? There's an argument I would make against Valtteri Bottas. Nico Hülkenberg, I've mentioned him on video many times before. Hülkenberg is a tremendous driver with an outstanding resume. His problem is he's never had a run at a top team. He hasn't got a proof of concept that other drivers have had. Daniel Ricciardo had a run at a top team. Hell, even Romain Grosjean, when Lotus were good in 2013, had a very good second half to that season and was challenging for wins. So, guys like that are in contention or who are in the mix, so to speak, they've had runs at a top team to show how good they can be. Hülkenberg has never had that privilege. Sauber were good the second half of 2013, but it wasn't really conclusive because Sauber were inconsistent. And hell, his career result was a little bit lucky because Sauber were just really good in Sector 1, the only overtaking point on the track. So, a lot of people know how good Hülkenberg is, but they're not willing to take the chance on him because there's just better options on paper more often than not. And that's Hülkenberg's biggest problem. He's never the #1 option. There's always, seemingly, a better idea than taking a chance on Hülkenberg at Force India. No one's ever joined Force India and been better on the way out as a result. That's just how this shit is worked out in Formula 1. So, it's a shame. It's kind of put a dampener on the driver market for the season because it's probably going to mean that most drivers will now stay where they are for next season, because if Raikkonen was going to go, it would create a domino effect up and down the paddock. Probably not going to happen now. Williams have not got a reason to get rid of Valtteri because Williams were expected to make about 10 million in the buyout clause in Bottas' contract if Ferrari were to take him in the first place. So now they're going to keep Bottas and Massa for another year. Hülkenberg will probably stay at Force India or go to Haas because he's Haas's #1 target, etc. And most of the other teams are going to retain their lineups. It's kind of a dampener, really, but overall, I personally would pull the trigger on Hülkenberg and see what he can do. He's excelled in every environment he's ever been put in his racing career. There's nothing from me to suggest that he wouldn't be able to do the same at Ferrari. But I also totally understand why Ferrari keep him too. Let me know what you guys think. I'd love to hear your opinions on this one as always. And until next time, I've been Harrison101. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll catch you guys next time. Sayonara.